When Tiger Woods walked into one of California's most elite car dealerships, nobody recognized the golf legend. That's when an arrogant manager made the biggest mistake of his career, trying to kick out and embarrass a man he assumed didn't belong. What he didn't know was that Tiger wasn't just browsing for a car. He had just bought the entire dealership. And what happened next became an instant legend. Because in true Tiger Woods fashion, he didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He taught everyone in the room a powerful lesson about humility, respect, and what real power actually looks like. It was a crisp Tuesday morning at Monroe Prestige Motors, the kind of dealership where polished chrome gleamed like gold. Espresso machines hissed in the corner, and every customer was assumed to have 7 figures in their bank account. The staff moved with sharp precision, tightening ties and perfecting smiles, their eyes always scanning for the next big buyer. No one noticed the man who stepped through the glass doors. He wore a plain black cap pulled low, dark sunglasses, and a lightweight Nike pullover, casual, clean, completely unassuming. He moved slowly, his gaze drifting across the showroom's shining lineup. A cherry red Ferrari, a matte black G-Wagon, a silver Aston Martin that looked like it had been carved from a single block of moonlight. The man was Tiger Woods. But no one looked twice. He walked with that same quiet confidence he brought to every tee box, but here it was mistaken for something else. Aimless browsing. Just another looky-loo. Just another window shopper in a sea of serious buyers. Rick Sanders noticed. Rick was the general manager, mid-40s, cufflinks sharp enough to slice, hair slicked back to perfection, and a jawline that looked like it had been shaped in a wind tunnel. He saw Tiger and immediately made a judgment. No entourage, no suit, no swagger. Rick's eyes narrowed. He muttered under his breath, "Here we go again." And with that, the stage was set. Not for a car sale, not for a confrontation, but for a moment that would be remembered far beyond the dealership walls. Because Rick Sanders didn't realize he wasn't just brushing off a customer. He was about to kick out the new owner. Before we dive back into the story, I've got a quick favor to ask. I'm working toward a goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And every single one counts. It would mean the world if you'd hit that subscribe button. All right, back to the story. Rick approached like he owned the floor. Because technically he did. At least that's what he believed. His shoes tapped against the marble tile as he crossed the room, his fake smile preloaded and ready. "Hey there, champ," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "Can I help you? Lost or waiting on someone?" Tiger looked up from the convertible he was admiring. His reply was calm. "Just looking." Rick paused, nodding like he'd heard it 1,000 times before. "Right, of course. Just so you know, we do appointments here for test drives. We've got a busy clientele." Tiger offered a polite smile, unfazed. "Not looking to drive, just browsing." Rick's eyes scanned the casual outfit again. Cap, sunglasses, pullover, sneakers. Definitely not a buyer. He stepped slightly in front of Tiger like a bouncer at a velvet rope. "Well, feel free to browse outside. These models are reserved for serious inquiries." From behind the reception desk, a young woman whispered to the intern beside her, eyes wide. "Is that Tiger Woods?" But Rick wasn't listening. He waved her off with a dismissive glance and a smirk. "Please, Tiger Woods wouldn't come here in sneakers." Tiger's gaze lingered on the car for a moment longer, then shifted back to Rick. There was no anger in his face, no frustration, just a quiet stillness. Rick had seen hundreds of customers, some rich, some pretending. And to him, this was just another guy pretending, another wannabe hoping to snap selfies with luxury cars before being politely asked to leave. So Rick did what he always did in these situations. He gestured toward the exit, and in doing so made the single most expensive mistake of his career. Tiger's eyes landed on a sleek, pearl-white convertible nestled in the center of the showroom. A limited edition model, one of only 10 in the country, the kind of car you didn't just drive, you collected. He stepped closer, admiring the craftsmanship, the way the curves of the body caught the light like a sculpture in motion. Then Rick reappeared, faster this time, sharper. "That's not really for browsing, sir," he said, louder than necessary. Tiger looked up, calm as ever. "I'm not touching anything." Rick's tone grew colder. "Right. Still, that one's reserved." Tiger nodded once. "Understood." But Rick wasn't finished. He glanced over his shoulder, spotting security near the glass doors. Then, in a voice loud enough for half the showroom to hear, he said, "Hey, Tom, could you keep an eye on this gentleman? We've had issues with loitering lately." The words hit like a slap across the room. A few heads turned. Customers paused their conversations. One man squinted, whispering something to his wife. Another tilted his phone, discreetly zooming in on Tiger's face. The receptionist froze mid-typing, her eyes locking onto the man in the pullover. Rick still didn't see it. He only saw what he wanted to, a guy in sneakers. And to Rick, sneakers didn't belong near supercars. He smiled to himself, proud of the power move. Tiger didn't flinch. He just let his eyes drift back to the convertible. For a moment, everything was quiet, but the air had changed, thickened. Because what Rick thought was control was actually disrespect building to a boil. And he didn't even realize. He had just disrespected one of the most iconic athletes in the world. In front of a growing audience, Tiger didn't raise his voice, didn't puff up his chest, didn't flex the kind of status that would have dropped Rick flat on his smug smile. Instead, he took a breath. "Thanks for your time," he said quietly. Then he turned, one slow, measured step at a time, and began walking toward the exit. No dramatics, no scene, just a man leaving. But that quiet exit? It spoke louder than anything else in the room. Near the receptionist desk, a younger employee, maybe 20, 21, froze with his phone halfway out of his pocket. His eyes went wide, lips parting, just slightly. He leaned toward his coworker, whispering, "Dude, that is Tiger Woods." Her eyes darted toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, following the man in the cap. Her jaw dropped. Rick didn't notice. He was still standing near the convertible, arms folded smugly, shaking his head. "Some people," he muttered, just loud enough for those nearby to hear, "need to know their lane." He chuckled at his own line. The receptionist's fingers hovered above her keyboard. The intern stared, stunned, as the man who'd just been dismissed like a nobody stepped through the automatic doors and disappeared into the California sun. Rick turned to the security guard with a grin. Crisis averted. But the guard didn't smile, because he'd recognized the man too. And unlike Rick, he understood exactly what had just happened. It wasn't a crisis averted, it was a fuse lit. Because in about 90 seconds, the entire dealership was going to learn the truth. And Rick, he was going to learn the hard way that sometimes the guy you kick out signs your paychecks. Outside, Tiger didn't rush. He moved like he always did, smooth, focused, unbothered. But inside his chest, click, the fuse was lit. He stepped into a black SUV, nodded once to the driver. No words needed, just a call. One number, one name. Inside, Rick was holding court, grinning, boasting. Guy didn't even know what he was looking at. Probably thought the Ferrari was a Mustang. Laughter. The intern didn't laugh. His phone buzzed. Then another. Then another. A tweet. A photo. A headline starting to form. Tiger Woods disrespected. In his own showroom, 3 desks away, the receptionist's jaw clenched. In the regional office across town, Lisa Martinez stared at her screen. Security footage. Rick. And Tiger. Walking out in silence, she stood. No words, no hesitation. Showtime. The doors blew open like a movie scene. First Lisa, then Tiger. No hat, no sunglasses, no need to hide. He wasn't anonymous anymore. He was the storm. Rick looked up mid-sentence, froze. His face drained so fast you'd think someone pulled the plug. Lisa didn't stop walking, didn't blink. She walked right through Rick's little kingdom like she'd come to collect. Behind her, Tiger's footsteps echoed, measured, controlled. But with every step, the walls started to bend. Lisa stopped inches from Rick, everyone watching, phones out, heartbeats loud. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Rick," she said, "meet your new boss." Tiger didn't smile, didn't smirk. He just looked Rick in the eye and said everything without saying a word. The room had gone silent. Rick stood frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes darting between Lisa Martinez, the regional VP, and Tiger Woods, who had just calmly re-entered the showroom with her at his side. Lisa turned, her tone polite but razor-sharp. "Rick," she said, "would you like to explain why our new owner was nearly thrown out of his own dealership?" Rick's jaw moved, but the words lagged behind. I didn't realize. He didn't say who he was," he stammered. "I thought he was just trespassing." "Trespassing?" Lisa repeated, arching a brow. "Really?" Rick's face flushed a deep red. "I mean, I didn't recognize him. Honest mistake." Tiger's voice cut in, low, steady, and firm. "You didn't ask who I was," he said. "You assumed." Rick opened his mouth to defend himself again, but Tiger kept speaking. "You looked at my clothes, my shoes, and you decided I didn't belong." The silence grew heavier. A couple of employees shifted uncomfortably. One customer crossed their arms, watching with quiet interest. The receptionist avoided Rick's eyes completely. Lisa didn't speak. She didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. And not just to Rick. Tiger hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't stormed in demanding respect. He had simply let the truth walk into the room beside him. And now, Rick stood there with nothing to lean on. Not his assumptions, not his ego, not his title. Just the wreckage of a moment he couldn't undo. Because when you judge the wrong person, sometimes they turn out to be the ones signing your next performance review. And sometimes, they show up just to watch you explain yourself. Tiger stepped forward, his voice calm, but his presence filled the room like a spotlight. "It's not about clothes," he said, scanning the floor staff, the interns, the wide-eyed receptionist. "It's not about titles. It's not about how someone walks in here." Everyone was listening now. Phones were out. Customers who had been browsing were now standing still, arms crossed, watching the moment unfold. "It's about how you treat people when no one's watching," Tiger continued. "When there's no camera, no audience, no pressure to impress." A slow murmur rippled through the room. Not words, just realization. Rick stood motionless, the heat rising up his neck. "You never know who someone is," Tiger added. "Could be a celebrity. Could be a stranger. Could be the owner of the building you're standing in." He looked around the room once more. "But it shouldn't matter. You treat everyone with respect. You lead with kindness, or you're not leading at all." The crowd clapped. Not the kind of polite applause reserved for a speech. This was different. It was real. From the staff, from the customers, even from the security guard who had quietly nodded from the back of the room. Lisa watched it all unfold with a small, satisfied smile. Tiger didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. The message had landed. It echoed in the corners of the room, in the posture of the employees now standing a little straighter, in the shame burning behind Rick's downcast eyes. This wasn't just about a dealership anymore. This was about something bigger, the quiet kind of integrity that doesn't need to prove itself. And in that moment, the man in sneakers had just redefined what power really looks like. The silence after the applause lasted longer than anyone expected. Rick stood like a man unarmed in a duel, his face tight, his shoulders slumped. He opened his mouth once more, but Lisa raised a single hand, firm, final. "That's enough, Rick," she said. "You're dismissed. Effective immediately." The words hit with the quiet weight of justice. No yelling, no drama, just truth, delivered plainly. Rick didn't argue. He turned slowly, walking off the showroom floor like a man leaving a dream he no longer owned, and just like that, the balance shifted. Lisa turned to the staff, her voice softened. "Now," she said, "let's talk about the future." She looked to the young employee near the front, the one who had recognized Tiger when no one else did. His eyes went wide as Lisa approached. "You trusted your instincts," she said. "You treated a stranger with quiet respect. That's the culture we're building here." She reached into her jacket and handed him a folded letter. "Congratulations, you're our new assistant manager." The room buzzed again, not from scandal this time, but from excitement. Tiger began walking the floor, this time not as a mystery man in sneakers, but as the new boss. The staff followed, eager to shake his hand, hear his story, share a smile. Phones buzzed like wildfire. Photos, videos, tweets. Tiger Woods kicked out of dealership he owns, and handles it like a legend. Within minutes, the story was already everywhere. But Tiger didn't seem to care. He wasn't walking for the cameras. He was walking because this floor, was his now. And every step he took rewrote the rules of what respect should look like. Later that afternoon, the sun dipped low over the California skyline, casting long golden streaks across the dealership's glass facade. Out front, a small crowd had gathered. Employees, customers, neighbors, even a few reporters drawn by the buzz. Lisa stood beside Tiger, both of them gazing up at the building as workers atop a lift unfurled a massive new banner across the front. Woods Automotive Group Excellence without assumptions. The crowd erupted into applause, not because it was a clever tagline, but because they had seen it, lived it. The entire day had proven every word on that banner. Tiger stood still, hands in his pockets, watching the fabric ripple in the breeze. Lisa leaned over, her voice low. "Quite a first day." Tiger smiled, the kind of smile that didn't need to be big to be powerful. "Let's drive real change," he said. Click. A dozen phones captured the moment. A new chapter had started, not just for the dealership, but for every person who had watched it unfold. Because this wasn't about cars anymore. It was about culture, about character, about what happens when quiet dignity walks into a room full of noise and commands it without saying a word. The camera panned out, catching the full sweep of the lot, the banner gleaming under the sun, and the man who had just turned a quiet visit into a national conversation. Tiger didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just showed up, stood tall, and let the truth speak for itself. And as the crowd cheered behind him, one thing was certain. This wasn't just a lesson, it was a legacy. This story was intense. But the one waiting for you on the right? It's even more insane. Click it now. You won't believe what happens next.